people sometimes when they're overwhelmed and they're anxious, which is the word I've heard quite a lot over the last week or so from my clients, is feeling really anxious. They're certainly out of control and they're overwhelmed now. They just don't know where to start. The importance of being able to kind of calmly take a look at what you've got ahead of yourself and work out what you can control is really critical. Because the thing that, I believe that people want, and for those leaders and executives out there listening to this, as a leader, you want to be able to deliver a calm voice to people. You want to let them know that, you're not sticking your head in the sand, that you're absolutely facing up to it, and that you're not alone.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share great conversations with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits that this has created. You see, the truth is that everyone invests. Every minute of every day, we're investing our time, our skills, our energy and our money in something. Some of us are investing consciously, some unconsciously, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, and sometimes for no impact. Get Invested will help you to start living by design, not by default. I'm going to help you to make it happen, not let it happen. You'll hear the top tips on how you can live with conscious intent so that you can live more, work less, and leave a living legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living your dream, not someone else's. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at bushymartin.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening, and now let's get invested. Hi, freedom fighters. Well, it's an understatement to say that we're certainly living in unprecedented, radically uncertain and rapidly changing times. So how are you feeling? How are you dealing with it? In a space of days, our whole world has shifted from a relatively stable sense of known knowns to a stampeding state of unknown unknowns. As one of my respected mentors said to me the other day, this is a total shit show. Now, I know you're probably feeling scared to death. You just don't know what's really going on here. You're scared this whole thing is getting out of control, and you're scared it's going to destroy you and your livelihood and everything you've worked so hard for. And I probably haven't even expressed this as badly as you're actually feeling. So how do we work our way through this so that we don't destroy each other and we put ourselves in a position to pick up the pieces and work together when this is over? This is the challenge that we're all faced with in surviving the economic calamity that has been triggered by the worldwide response to the C word. It's important to maintain perspective and separate facts from fiction during these times. So be extremely careful where you're getting your information from. If you're feeding on the feverish frenzy that the mainstream media are creating to maintain their own dying relevance with their negatively selective and non-representative fear factories, then you'll worry yourself to death. So my first piece of advice is to stop listening to the news. Negativity breeds negativity and becomes self-fulfilling if we're stupid enough to believe and act on the narrow, biased view that they're presenting. We need to stop and ignore the social fear contagion that's the real virus that we have to fight. We need to focus on the facts and ignore the fiction. Let's be clear. There are no supply chain issues. The runs on the supermarket shelves have been totally artificially created by the press. Just think about it. How else would you be thinking that there's no toilet paper unless the media beat up and promoted the story? Yes, our lifestyles and the freedoms that we've become accustomed to have been temporarily disrupted. But disruption does not spell doom. Rapid change of any kind is very unsettling. We've been forced to break our lifestyle habits that we've all taken for granted. And yes,
The rapid responses mean that there are some sectors that have been affected, and there have been and will be some temporary job losses in these areas. However, they remain a relatively small minority, not the majority that the media is keeping us scared shitless with. The reality is that Australia is in extremely good shape economically, and governments at all levels, globally, nationally and locally, in conjunction with the banks, have made it clear they will do whatever it takes to ensure we survive this short-term dip so we can thrive on the other side. The tens of billions of dollars being committed to support those affected is just the start of the stimulus measures that will be taken to see us through. This will be as worse of a correction as we individually and collectively make it. If we talk everything down and continue to feed our anxiety, we will make our talk a reality. It will become self-fulfilling. Conversely, if we embrace our short-term mobility disruption, adjust, adapt, and continue to support each other with the understanding that this is a short-term correction, we're all going to get through this. What happens from here is up to us. So how are you going to survive to get through to the other side? Well, over the next few episodes of Get Invested, along with Facebook videos on our @Know How to Make It Happen Facebook page, along with blogs and useful information on our website knowhowproperty.com.au, I'll be stepping out how you can survive and then thrive in these radically uncertain times, along with details of what support is available and the options you have, together with insights from guests who can give you real, tangible, positive actions. And if you have any questions or queries on what to do and where to go in these uncertain times, just jump on our website at www.knowhowproperty.com.au and book a free appointment. So in response to these radically uncertain times, we've encapsulated a proven 4-step process to maximise your chances of success. These are the same simple 4 steps that have helped me personally and countless others to survive through every major calamity that the world has thrown at us so far, including all of the shock events that were going to kill us all, including the recession we had to have in the 1980s, HIV, the Y2 scare, 9/11, SARS, swine flu, the GFC, and the Ebola virus. The reality is that the only thing that is currently killing us is our fear. And the best way to stop fear is to start by turning off the TV, stop reading the papers, and block any negative fake news on social media. Just don't buy into it. If you continue to swim in the media's septic tank, you're going to get your eyes, ears, and mouth full of shit. And this is not a time for sticking your head in the sand and doing nothing, hoping it'll all go away. This is not a time to panic and knee-jerk react. This is a time to prepare and pivot, to show considered courage, not cowardice. I'm going to help to take you from fear to controlled calm. That's CALM. I'm going to help you action the 4-step keep calm method to deactivate your fears and prepare and position yourself to survive and then thrive, where C is for controlling your thoughts, cutting the crap, cutting your costs, focusing purely on controlling what you can control and caring about others. A is for activating, automating, and easily accessing your growing rainy day reserve survival savings war chest, which we can show you how to create if and when necessary. It's about becoming personally accountable. L is for leveraging emerging opportunities, leveraging other people's expertise and other people's money to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that always emerges in these times of radical uncertainty. And finally, M is for managing and monitoring your mindset and ongoing radically changing environment so that you can quickly adapt, pivot, and morph accordingly. This 4-step approach to shift you from fear to keeping calm is going to give you the best chance of success so that we can all survive and thrive on the other end of this short-term correction. And I'll be breaking this down in more detail into actionable options and steps in coming episodes and in our Facebook videos and our website blogs. If you take the actionable, appropriate steps to create a continuity plan now, then in reality, a downturn is just a stopgap or a pause control to the next upturn, where you'll be cash flow fit and ready to take full advantage of the opportunities that inevitably arise. This is not a time for doing nothing or knee-jerk reacting. I want to say that again. This is a time for careful, considered and creative action to prepare for the worst and then expect the best, so we're positioned to capitalise on events as they unfold and actually take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And one of the critical skills and disciplines that is going to be required to help see you through the challenges and then take you to success is the need for personal accountability. And there's no better person to show you how to adopt this mission-critical skill of accountability than today's guest, Darren Finkelstein. Darren is known as the accountability guy. Darren has managed to repeatedly survive and thrive through a whole series of major unexpected challenges throughout his long career, which he shares with us in quite some detail in our chat today. And the underpinning quality that has enabled him to do this is his consistent accountability to himself and others. Darren is known as the guy that can make a real difference in your business and your personal life. He's an accountability coach, a business advisor and presenter through his business tickthoseboxes.com.au. And he's been well credentialed throughout his own journey, which is filled with high achievement and great success, side by side with the lowest of the lows. Darren's a proven survivor and thriver. He has solid skills that prove that he actually walks his talk. As a business advisor and mentor, he delivers real results and helps businesses, professionals and their teams to be fully accountable. He works with you to focus on accountability. So you stick to your goals, you create great plans, you set your priorities, and most importantly, he helps you to get shit done in changing, uncertain situations. As you'll hear, his past experience includes a high-level managerial role with Apple during the inspirational Steve Jobs era. He's also built a successful entrepreneurial business for 15 years in the lifestyle and marine industry. He's also the author of 3 best-selling award-winning books. He's enjoyed 2 back-to-back Entrepreneur of the Year awards to his name, and he works as a lifestyle and outdoors presenter in Melbourne on Radio 3AW. His diverse experience of the highs and lows of business at all levels and in all roles means that he has a full playbook of real, tangible, no-nonsense tips, advice and accountability approaches that helps you in easily actionable and fun ways. On top of all of this, Darren's a top bloke who calls it as it is and is always looking for a laugh. So now is a great time to listen, learn and laugh with Darren Finkelstein. Hi Freedom Fighters, it's Bushy Martin back again, and today we've got a real delight for me and yourselves because we get to spend some time with the accountability guy. And I've had the pleasure of knowing him now for quite some years in our joint involvement in the Key Person of Influence program. Can't even get it out. And always been impressed with the way the guy operates. He's got a great sense of humour. He's just a great all-round bloke. So welcome, Darren Finkelstein.
Hey, Bushy, lovely to be here, and thanks for inviting me as a guest. I feel pretty honoured.
Mate, been wanting to get you on for quite a while, actually, mate, and no better time given that at the moment there's a lot of nervous Nellies in the community who are dieting on the fear factories that the mass media would like to scare the crap out of us on. But
they're achieving that, I reckon.
They're doing that well.
The media is winning at the moment.
They are, I agree. And I guess part of the discussion tonight is to put some balance back into that equation and see the facts from the fiction. But, mate, just to sort of kick off, for those who don't know who you are, can you give us a bit of a quick rundown on who you are, what you do, where you're heading, and why you do what you do, mate?
Yeah, no problem at all, Bushy. So, Darren Finkelstein is the name. That surname's a killer. I wish I could have changed it all those years ago. And I'm known as the accountability guy. And I work with high-performing entrepreneurial business owners, executives and their teams to ensure full accountability. So what that really means is that they do the things they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do them, and they get their teams to do exactly the same. And in the world of delivering and implementation and execution, accountability is absolutely key to making that happen.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, mate. It's a missing link and probably the success ingredient in anything, really. It's a lot of people talk about what they're going to do and very few end up achieving it. So, mate, why do you do what you do in that regard?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting question. And if I kind of look back over my business career and all those roles that I've fulfilled, both as an employee of organisations and being self-employed, accountability is something that I've always done naturally. For me, it's all great to sit down and talk high-level strategy and get right into stuff, and there's a place for that. But you know what? Take all that hoo-ha away when it's you and your computer screen and your phone, and you've got to now start implementing and executing stuff to get stuff done, to work through the to-do list you have, to work through those new business ideas you'd like to implement. It's actually about the doing that is critical. No more strategy. It's actually doing. You've got to pick up the phone. You've got to make the call. You've got to be proactive. And that's what's always resonated really well with me. And I reckon if I look back over my business career, it's the component that I've had right from beginning to where I am today. And it's something that I'm really proud of. And it makes a difference. I get to achieve stuff. And that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Where did that, you said it's sort of always been with you. Where did that first evidence itself, and where do you think that's come from, mate? Yeah,
look, I kind of look back at where I started. If I go right back to the beginning, I got kicked out of high school. I repeated Form 4, which I loved it so much they asked me to do it again. So that's kind of my spin on it. But if the truth be known, they thought I just didn't cut the mustard. I was much better socially than I was scholastically, and I probably had a point. But for me, the whole accountability thing was that I just found out because I left school really early, I was on my own, and I, like to think that I have an MBA of life. I've just found that if I can increase my output, increase my activity levels, activity creates opportunity. And I reckon opportunity is where we all make money in business. And I've just felt that because for so long I felt like I was on my own, I wasn't part of a system. It was me fending for myself in the big wide world at sort of the ripe old age of 17. Accountability, I just had to do what I said I was going to do, and I was going to do it on time, and I was going to get it done because it was important for me to take that next step. So right back at the early stages, I reckon accountability was in my blood, so to speak.
Yeah, got it, mate. So take us on the journey then. So left school at 17. What did you get into? What did you invest your time and your energy and money in?
Yeah.
What have you learned along that journey? And sort of take us through that journey, particularly through the challenges that you've had on that journey to get you to where you are today, mate.
Sure. So I left school and went to work for the Bank of New South Wales as a bank teller. Okay. I just liked the idea of playing with money so much. I went and worked in a bank, but the banking system just wasn't for me. It was just too structured and it was just too full of old crusties that just didn't get the way Darren thought. And I thought, stuff it. I'll go and get a job in a sales career. My mate was a sales rep for a chemical company, and he used to just live the life. Have a company car. He'd be at home in the afternoon at 3:00 having a snooze because he'd done his calls for the morning, and it was really well organised. Used to get his numbers all the time as a sales rep, so he could use the rest of the time himself. And I was kind of lured by the attraction of that. I went and got a job as a sales cadet with Remington office machines back in the day, selling photocopiers. Can you believe it? Okay. And I cut my teeth on that traditional blue suit, white shirt, corporate look with a waistcoat, and I was selling photocopiers, and I did that for a little while. I got married at the age of 20. I have to think now. At 23. And so if you do the maths, our 35th wedding anniversary is next Tuesday. And when I got married, my father-in-law was a really entrepreneurial guy. Since he's passed away, sadly, but he was a real big influence in my life. And he, I guess, encouraged me to go and work for myself. And I set up a computer accessories business in the 80s.
Okay.
Which was interesting times in the 80s. You know, I was selling, my little computer accessories business was selling floppy disks and continuous paper. Do you remember that paper they used to have that was all joined together?
That's right.
So I was selling that sort of stuff. And in the late 80s, we had a recession in that era. Interest rates, Bushy, were 20+%, 22%.
I was with you, mate. I was with you. I was sweating blood at that time on the home mortgage during those late 80s, mate.
Oh, man, it was horrible. And, you know, the thing that I remember really clearly was my average order in my business, and I've always been focused on numbers, probably as a result of having to, you know, be on my own and really try and just get and I'm also a bit dyslexic, so I just need to see stuff on paper. Otherwise, I transpose numbers, and I don't do it intentionally. It's just the way it's been.
Yeah.
So in those days, selling computer accessories, my average order was $120, and my debtors days were around 120.
Right.
And so, you know, do the numbers at 22% interest, and I was working off an overdraft. People just wouldn't pay me. You know, as much as I delivered great service to them, my order in the overall course of spending, which became reduced, and spending became really tight, my overall invoice value just got lost in the process. And for $120, no one really ever bothered to pay it. And of course, as a young businessman, I'm like the sales guy, just focusing on getting numbers in the door. I wasn't focusing on collecting the money from people. And sadly, right in the heat of that recession, not unlike the times we're having at the moment, Bushy, I had to go and tell people, I had to tell 10 staff, I got goosebumps telling you this story, 10 staff on Christmas Eve that I'd been placed into voluntary receivership. And, you know, my bank, the bank in those days was standing right next to me, and so was a member from the Ferrier Hodgson, the, you know, big accounting firm that were the bank appointed. And even though we were put in a voluntary receivership, they ran the whole exercise. So I was just a bit of a, you know, I'd lost all control, and I was now at the beck and call of the bank.
Mate, I'd love to dig in there a little bit if you don't mind, because it is very relevant to how a lot of people are feeling at the moment. There's a lot of emerging fear, some of it valid, a lot of it not. But in the lead up to that point where you had to put up the flag for voluntary receivership, what were you feeling? What was going through your mind? What sort of things were you doing at that stage, mate? Can you take us back there?
You know, yeah, it's interesting because I've relived these moments a lot over my business career since, and, you know, we're talking of, you know, a good 30 odd years ago, and lots of things have changed, including my level of care and responsibility that I take for things. Mm-hmm. But what was going through my mind in those days is, you know, when you're connected with a business, you become incredibly passionate about it. And in a lot of respects, Bushy, you become very singular focused. You become tunnel visioned, if you like. You just see it from the way you see it.
Yeah.
And it's so much to be gained by having an outsider look in rather than someone inside looking in, because, you know, you're so connected to it. It's part of you. It's an extension of who you are. Yeah. So I never got to see it for what it really was. And I failed to really grasp the components, the elements that made a business successful. You know, the numbers, both, you know, in terms of revenue, but also in terms of expenditure. And, you know, the money didn't have, it was a bit like I was playing with Monopoly money. It just didn't seem to have real connection like I have to a $20 bill today. I look at things completely different. And in a lot of respects, Bushy, it was probably because of my age. You know, I was 23 and I didn't really have any desires to do this, but my father-in-law was really keen and encouraged me to do it. And I did it with his support. And it cost us a lot in the end. It cost us we lost our house. My wife and I had $500 in the bank at Christmas, and we had. Remember this, we had a Great Dane dog, a little dog called Gus. Love that thing. It looked like Scooby-Doo, you know, that big floppy thing. Yeah. Poor old Gus became incontinent because of some muscle problem he had. Oh. And Great Dane was confident. You can just imagine what would happen. And so it ended up being that the dog cost us the quote from the vet was $2,000 to get the dogs operated on, and there may be a chance the dog would not pull through. And we had $500 to the bank. We just lost our house. And, you know, we just loved that dog so much that we was never in our minds whether we would do it or we wouldn't do it. We just borrowed money from friends, got the $2,000 together, got the surgery done on the dog, and the fucking dog died. Oh. That was the end of it. Lost my $2,000 to my friends. Nothing else seemed, you know what else could happen then? It was at the bottom.
How are you coping mentally, mate? There's a lot of SHIT going in your world right there, mate. How did you cope? What did you do to one, you know, sort of stop falling into a deep depression and a big hole and sort of crawling up in the corner? Talk us through how you sort of managed to get through all that.
Well, I just believe that that we as human beings are a bit like a spring. And when you push a spring down and you stretch it out, it goes back to where its original position. And I just thought that, that this wasn't a reflection on, this was a reflection of the times that, I know that I know the things that I did wrong and the things that I'd like to do better next time. And I just thought the timing wasn't right for me to, you know, continue on going down the path I was going down. And you know, in the last year or two of the business, I'd lost the fun element out of it. It became freaking serious. And all the reasons why I thought I was going into business to give myself the freedom, to think I was going to give myself a new life ahead of me. I'm young. I want to take on the world and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I just kind of felt I got the bit of the stuffing knocked out of me, and I was ready to regroup and do this again when the time was right. And I never in my mind thought, other than the decision of going into receivership partially was a relief.
Right.
Because it just gave me an end to what was trying to hold on to bits and pieces of this business. And in those days I used to smoke, and I was probably had a good old durry hanging out of my gob all the time. And it wasn't a healthy existence, but in those days that was my existence.
Yeah, which is pretty
just learn to cope.
Yeah. You just sort of kept going, because there's a lot of people that would fold, that would feel a personal failure and lose total belief in themselves and what they were doing. How did you have the resilience to dust yourself off from that, mate? Can you sort of talk us through the way you think about that?
Yeah. Look, I knew what my strengths were, and I was a really good. I'm the front guy, the sales guy, that goes in there with. And can make a situation into a really positive outcome. And so I knew that no one, the bank couldn't take that away from me. They could take everything else, but I still had, I was young enough. I still had the desire to want to be something and make something of my life, particularly even more motivation now that I'd just lost it all. And there was no alternative but to, okay, well, what do we do? We got $500 in the bank. We're now minus 1,500 because of the dog. We just had to keep working to get through it. We knew that we weren't going to go hungry. Fortunately we have, siblings and parents and grandparents in those days, all that sort of, circle to kind of look after us.
Yeah. Yeah, mate, awesome. So what was the next step, mate? So you dust yourself off from that?
Dust myself off from that. And I remember one of the time when we were negotiating, we would try to sell the business, what was left of it. And one of the parties that the receiver didn't want to negotiate with said to me, when this was all over, you give me a ring at any stage, Darren, I'd love to hire you. So off I went and worked for a company selling computer accessories, just like I was doing, a company called ICL, which is International Computers Limited, who were eventually bought out by Fujitsu. And I stayed with them for a few years. At Fujitsu, I then went into personal computer area, and personal computers were just starting to evolve and becoming more of a commodities style item.
Yeah.
I then ended up moving into point of sale and retail systems, and I looked after some of the biggest supermarket and retail chains in Australia with Fujitsu. I looked after 600 Katie's stores around Australia. I looked after all the supermarkets, the IGAs. We know about the, community benefit with the Ritchie stores, which is still doing today. I was responsible for looking after Ritchie's account, point of sale systems, loyalty cards, and automating that process. Did that really successfully, made Quota Club in a sales environment, a couple of times, got some great trips away, started to rebuild, had a company car and started to rebuild our little stockpile and our self-confidence. Meanwhile, my wife was working her ass off and we had a child at that point and, trying to balance the life and the work and all that sort of stuff. And one of my old colleagues from Fujitsu went to Apple and, Apple Computer. And he went there as a state manager of Victoria. And he rang me up and said, Darren, you're the whiz doing personal computers for Fujitsu. Why don't you come over to Apple and work for us? And I went, Apple, what, like a reseller? And he said, no, we're corporate head office. We're the Victorian office. So I went along, had an interview, and probably one of the only few people that got employed by Apple ever that was got kicked out of school and didn't have a degree.
Yeah, okay.
I know, believe that.
Interesting.
Go back to my old high school and tell them to get nicked. So that'd be good. So I got a job at Apple. I was I got responsible for major accounts.
Yeah.
Victoria and Apple during that era was very different to the way it is today. It was the era when Microsoft was winning the IT battle, and Apple was always seen as a bit of an outsider and only really for the creative people in this little niche.
Yeah.
But I eventually managed to work at Apple for 10 years. And became the manager of commercial markets. I looked after major accounts, global accounts. I looked after the whole of government. I looked after Apple stores, Apple centers, retailers, Harvey Norman, everything that wasn't education.
That's a pretty massive role, mate.
Yeah, it was good. It was great. And I just kept on, delivering numbers. I won a Golden Apple Award that, I've got a Golden Apple here with a little diamond in it that I was given. Won all these amazing trips away. But used to just have these incredibly good experiences for the dropout kid from, I don't mind saying it, Doncaster High School. The dropout from Doncaster High School was taking executives from Australia to Cupertino, California for meetings with, Steve Jobs and the executive team in those days, because this was during the era of Steve Jobs when he returned to Apple after he got fired from his own company.
Would have been a pretty amazing time to be working in that culture with Steve driving the massive turnaround that occurred over that time.
And I think that's part of why I've got this accountability thing drummed into my head, because Steve never took shit from anybody. He was a singular focus bordering on a dictatorship. And there's people in the world who are that higher level and that attuned business people that's the way they operate. It was Steve's way or the highway. That was what we used to say internally. And you make a commitment in Apple. They kept you to every minute of every word. You said you were going to do something. What date, what time was that needed to be completed by? And you didn't get a second chance. And that was the standards they set. And that, part of that accountability is still drummed into me. And I still use it today with my clients in talking to them about the importance of doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And so I spent some time at Apple, and I lived a wonderful life at Apple, traveling all around the world and visiting Cupertino with clients for the best part of 10 years.
Nice.
And then the day came that my world got changed when everybody's world got changed on what was 9/11 in the US, the 11th of
September,
way back. Which was the 12th of September here. I woke up that morning. It was a beautiful sunny day. I remember it clearly, going to get the newspaper, having breakfast, going to our office in St Kilda Road, Melbourne here, which was in the Cadbury Schweppes building with this amazing view over the bay. And I walked in there, and the World Trade Centers had got attacked, and, the world had completely changed. And there was my CEO, sitting in the office, and there was also a stranger, and they were waiting at reception for me. And I thought, oh my God, Apple's got another security threat, you know, a big American company. And in those days, Bushy, we used to get bomb threats all the time, and you know, nutters threatening us. So I thought it was about that. And they said, no, Darren, I'm sorry to tell you, but here's your redundancy check. We've had to cut the costs, and every year, as you know, we pick the highest earners, the most successful people, because we just need to get our numbers down below our headcount and our account and our operational expenditure down below a figure. And we start at the top, and we pulled your name off the list. It's your turn this year.
So that was on the day of
on the day. So I just didn't know what to do. Right. So they've left, and they've told me I've got a redundancy payout and all this sort of stuff, and I didn't really know what to do. So.
Mate, let's focus in right there if you don't mind. But when you're sitting in the chair and they drop the stunner about, I'm sorry, we're making you redundant, what went through your head?
My first thing was, you got to be kidding. You got the wrong person. It can't be me. And then I start thinking back to the times I'd made in a sales environment, quota club and all this sort of stuff. I'd made that every year I'd been there. And as I said, I'd won a Golden Apple Award. Why me? You just go through this emotional roller coaster. I remember thinking they got it wrong. It can't be me. Okay. So now it is me. Why have they done that? And then I got really angry and really shitted off by it. It's like they never appreciated all the things that I'd done. And all the things that I'd achieved while I was there, and those nights that I came home late and I travelled, and my kids one of my kids used to sleep with my photo under their pillow because I was away from home so often they couldn't remember what Dad looked like.
Bloody hell.
And I was just thinking that's what you need to do.
Yeah, of course.
So they go and give me the sass on that day, and I just went through this emotional roller coaster. It took me probably 3 or 4 weeks to kind of get to a point where I actually started to think like this was a relief. I used to use this analogy, Bushy, that I'm on what it's like when you're on a treadmill and you turn the speed to a setting and you just run, right? Yeah. And if you turn the speed up a little bit more, you just look at the ground, at the treadmill, at your feet, and you just keep running to stay afloat. Yeah. I just likened my time at Apple to being on a treadmill. Someone had kept on turning the dial faster, 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 faster. There was no end. And I was not looking around at what I was seeing, the wonderful experiences I had in the trips to Cupertino, to experience dealing with, some of the most senior IT professionals in business in this country. Dealing with the board of BHP and the board of KPMG and all this sort of stuff that I was responsible for. I never really took any of that in because I was just looking at the ground, not at the scenery going past me. My wife's tearing past me. My kids don't know who I am, but I'm just trying to keep on that freaking treadmill.
A lot of the major corporates were, and some still do take that approach. Well, we'll cut the people that we pay the most, even though they're the highest earners, the highest achievers, and write the most business. It's a fairly strange philosophy to get rid of your best people just to maintain a bottom line.
Yeah, it is. And it just doesn't make common sense, They're making the most amount of money because they're the ones who are achieving the most.
Of course. Exactly right.
And isn't that how you want business to be? You want to pay your highest achievers more because they high achieve?
Mate, in my business, the more someone makes, the happier I am, mate, because it means that the business is doing really well.
I know, but you know what? Look at these businesses that are forced to make really difficult decisions at the moment with what's going on with the virus. How do you make those decisions? You've got to get your head count down to a certain number. You've got to get your operational expenditure budget to a certain number because that's the number that you reckon head office or whomever can accept. And it's not about the people. It's just about numbers. And people like me, Darren, at Apple for 10 years, became a number. And that pissed me off more than anything else. But, that's the way the cookie crumbled. And I got in my car and I remember in those days I drove a dark green 911. It was my dream car.
Nice.
And I drove down to the marina at St Kilda where I had a little speedboat that my father-in-law said to me, because I've always been in a boating and he's always been a yachty. And he said, look, I've got this little boat at St Kilda, Darren. I will pay the storage at the marina. So, because I'm retired, I can go and use it fishing whenever I want with my mates, but I'll pay you storage so it's convenient for everybody. It's just a little outboard powered, speedboat.
Yeah, nice.
And I said, oh, look, why not? Let's, I would let you use the boat even if you didn't pay, but seeing you've offered, I'll take you up on that. So I went down to St Kilda Marina, got in my little fishing boat and bawled my eyes out. And I rang my wife and I said to her, you'd never believe what happened today. And she's going, oh my God, 9/11. Of course I know, I read it, I heard about it. I said, no, it's different. I lost my job today. And she didn't, she just was, we were both devastated.
Stunned. You bloody stunned.
Without it coming.
Yeah. I mean, it would have come from nowhere. So again, that would have been pretty devastating to your self-esteem, because it doesn't matter how you externalise it and say, okay, well, I understand it's a head count. It still impacts on your psyche and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. How
did you manoeuvre through that and where did that lead you to, mate?
Yeah, so one of the things that Apple were kind enough to offer me was some outplacement services. And those outplacement services gave me the ability to kind of digest all this stuff. Because the thing that, I believe that people want, and for those leaders and executives out there listening to this, as a leader, you want to be able to deliver a calm voice to people. You want to let them know that you're not sticking your head in the sand, that you're absolutely facing up to it, and that you're not alone. And so this outservice placement, the outplacement service that Apple gave me, was an ability to sit down with a group of people who had also, they run these weekly cycles of things. I just happened to slot into a week, and there was a group of people there who were also senior executives with their companies, and that they'd lost their jobs. And we were listening to some calmed voices that were telling us we weren't alone. There was a little cohort next to us, so we didn't feel isolated. And I really needed that for a couple of months. And to just let those corporate scars heal, because, it really knocked me around for a while. And, you look at the story of, how Apple sort of evolved to now, and it's an amazing story, and I'm probably the biggest advocate of their products.
Yeah.
But it was it was an opportunity in life. It was a change, a new chapter for me. And Apple had done its time. If I look back at it now in hindsight, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, while I was on that treadmill, so much passed and I didn't get a chance to really enjoy it for the journey that it was. Yeah. And there's this guy, the school dropout from Doncaster High School, that, had this sort of, got beaten around a fair bit at school. And there I was working for Apple, and I did 10 years of it, and it was, it's fantastic. And I'm so proud of that time, and I don't look back now with any level of upset until you talk to me about the share price.
You want to share that now, or will we come back to that a little bit later?
Well, we'll come back to it later on.
Yeah, no, I love that, mate. So again, given that sort of major knock at a fairly interesting time in the world too. So there's a lot of negativity and fear floating around at 9/11. Everyone was, sort of starting to hide under the bed and wondering when the terrorists were going to do something in the backyard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Given that whole environment, given you suddenly you're back at financially, the tap's been turned off. What did you do to work your way out, and what was the next step?
Yeah, so I've always been a big fan for attacking the low-hanging fruit when things aren't so good, because it gives you, if you can go and work on some stuff that's going to give you some success early, makes you feel good early, just gives you that little boost in your step that you need. I decided to go to all of my Apple resellers and ask them whether it was an interest in me consulting to them. And privately consulting to them, and I had a huge uptake of that. Actually, it was wonderful, the level of support I got from my clients, and my, the resellers who I'd work with on a day-to-day basis, and who were very keen to engage me. And so I basically worked as a business consultant to those resellers, And I was doing about, 8 days out of every 10 working days. So I had 2 days off a fortnight. And during that time, my wife said to me, you need to go and do something that you really love, that you're really passionate about. You hang around the marina all the time because, my boat was just sitting in the yard on asphalt, on its trailer at the marina. It wasn't sitting in the water or anything fancy. And I used to go down there, and I don't know how many times I'd just take a beer down there, wash and clean that boat, scrub it. It was looking beautiful. And, and I'd sit there and play with my hooks and my sinkers and do all that sort of stuff in my tackle box. It was kind of like my little man shed. She said, you love the marina so much. You're down there all the freaking time. Why don't you go down there and see if there's anybody down the marina in any of those boat businesses that wants to hire you for a day a month or something like that, a couple of days a month, that you can actually do something, not get any money for it, but just go and do something that you're passionate about.
Love it.
Yeah, how good is she?
She's trying to get you out of the house or something, mate.
Oh, I've got to get out of the house because you can't sit there and watch Oprah all the time. It's enough already. And you're looking like a little rissole because you're sitting there tucking into the food in the fridge. So I sort of said, no, look, no one will want me. There's that negative self, that voice that had kind of been bitten, belted around the head with the Apple experience and my own business kind of coming up, that little voice that tells you what you can't do.
Yeah.
And I kind of, didn't do anything because I listened to that freaking voice. And my wife said, go on, ring him, do something. There's a boat sales business down there at the marina. Go and introduce yourself to the guy. He used to work for Apple. Tell him that. Tell him you can do some of his marketing or some of his sales or help him with all that stuff. Yeah. Oh, do I have to? He's just going to say no. She said, go and do it. So off I went, and I actually did it. I walked in there and said to the boat sales business down there at St Kilda Marina, hey, look, I've got a boat in this building here. I see you all the time. And he kind of, I've seen you around the place. I said, look, mate, I used to work for Apple. I've got a little bit of time up my sleeve now. Can I work for you for free, 1 day a month or a couple of days a month? And he said, look, I really appreciate your offer, but it's winter, or it wasn't winter. It was sort of coming out of into the summer season. So he hadn't yet geared up for summer.
Yeah.
And he said, look, not yet, but if I need something, I'll come and give you a call. I went, yeah, no worries. So off I went consulting to my businesses and to my Apple resellers. And I get this random phone call one day, Bushy, from this bloke saying, oh, yeah, it's Steve down there at the boat sales business at St Kilda Marina. Do you want to come round for a coffee? And I went, oh, you betcha. So I dropped everything and teared down on the marina about 15 minutes later, probably too eager, and said, you want to have a coffee? He said, you want to have a coffee? Let's chat about, I've fallen in love with this Italian girl. She's here in Australia as an interpreter for SBS, and I want to go back to Italy to live. Would you like to buy my business? And I just didn't even know what to, I didn't even know what to do. When someone says, do you want to buy my business? What is the process? I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
And what do you do? So I then went and caught up with a mate of mine who was a boatie. He was a yachty. He was really into sailing boats, and I was always into power boats.
Yeah.
I used to water ski I was a pretty good water skier when I was sort of 18 years old when I bought my first boat.
Yeah.
And with my mate, and I said to my sailing friend, I said, do you want to buy a boat business? And he said, well, I'm not buying a fucking boat business unless it's local. Unless we can get something like St Kilda Marina here in Melbourne, because we only live both of us live 5 Ks from the marina. Yeah. I'm not doing that. And I said, well, guess what? It's St Kilda Marina. And this was like the premier marina here in Melbourne. And we then went and had a conversation and thought, what do we need to do? And he told us the price, and the price was for me and my mate to go halves. It wasn't hurt money. It means that if we lost that money, we weren't going to lose another house. We weren't going to go, in a financial ruin. Yeah, but let's give it a crack and see what it can be.
Yeah.
And we eventually bought that business. The day that we bought it, we renamed it, we rebadged it, we threw out the old and started with the new. And it was amazing how it just became, it just worked.
Did it just work because of that passion you had? I mean, I've got to say, mate, what I'm putting in the thread through the needle here, your wife's clearly a bit of a rock, mate, because she was right beside you when the first exercise went belly up, and she seems to have taken in a stride some of the major challenges that you've had to deal with. How important has she been in helping you to get through those tough times?
Oh, look, she without question, it wouldn't have happened without her doing it. I mean, if I just look back at the simple little things like the boat, going to talk to the boat guys and asking go and work there for free. It's your passion. Go and follow that passion. I would never have followed my passion. Yeah. I wouldn't have even been able to identify my passion, even though I knew I was into boating. I didn't know it was so important to me.
Yeah.
But she has this level of intuition, which, has held us in pretty good stead for most of our life. And we just, we've always had this attitude we're just gonna give it a go. Because if we don't give it a go, we don't want to die thinking we could have, we should have, we may have. We're gonna give it a crack. And if it all goes to shit, then we can still, it's already gone to shit for us. So don't scare me again. I can't be scared again.
Love it, mate. I absolutely love that attitude, mate, of just having a crack. Yep.
Oh, you got to. Yeah. Don't want to think about what it could have been. I hate people that think what they could have, what it should have. And so many of my friends, Bushy, have been in their jobs for the bulk of their career, their working lives. I'm in my 50s, and I've got plenty of friends that hate what they're doing every day, and they tell me they hate it, but they won't do anything about it. They can't do anything about it. They are part of the system. And they don't know what it's like to venture out of that little comfort zone and take a different path to the other sheep that are in front of them have. But it's so sad to watch people's lives get wasted because they don't have a crack.
100% agree. And I think it's particularly relevant in the current times that we're facing, because those that have got into that comfort zone are pretty quick to point the finger at everyone else for what they should be doing to help out the situation. But if the poo hits the fan, quite often they haven't got much to fall back on either. And suddenly things are looking pretty grim. What do you say to people out there that may have been sort of stuck in their current roles for a long time and have that sort of fear of, well, I'm better the devil I know than the devil I don't? What do you say to them in terms of having the belief in themselves to perhaps at least look at something else?
Yeah, look, I think that I tend to get a bit frustrated by some of those people because they're living the life that of their path that they're on. And I don't necessarily have a place to be able to tell them there's a better way of doing it or another way to do it. It's not for me to be able to do that.
Sure.
And I get frustrated because I really like them to see the light. I like them to give it a crack. But I'm not going to give it a crack because that's the standards that I follow. Everybody's different. They follow their own standards, and they'll work with the confines and the lessons they need to learn in their lifetime aren't the lessons I need to learn in my lifetime. So I can't. It's not right for me to judge those people.
Sure. Sure.
But I'm very happy to if it inspires them and they want to reach out and they want me to help them, talk to them about it. I'd be delighted to do that. It'd be my absolute pleasure to share with people the things that I've got out of the stuff that I've done, and everybody's got the ability to do the same. It's just whether they choose to do it.
Yeah, no, good call. Mate, I know your boat business went crackingly, and that stage of the game you were well renowned as the boat guy. Tell us a bit more about the success you had there, because it's a great
so we
story.
started so we ended up we had the business for 15 years. So much for my business partner Andrew and I giving it a crack and seeing how it would turn out. 15 years later, we successfully sold the business. We exited, and Andrew and I kind of grew apart towards the end because we're both very different people and we wanted different things out of life. And I remember often saying to him on a Sunday night, "Oh, mate, can't wait for tomorrow. It's work day. It's Monday. We're back on the tools again. I love it." And he's going, "Oh, mate, I couldn't think of anything worse. I've got all these freaking customers and need their boats fixed." I'm like, "Yeah, they're paying us money for it. How good's that?" "Oh, mate, I've got mechanics to deal with." And he would always see the cup half full. I would always see the, half empty, and we were just basically looking at the same thing but seeing it from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And If you have it, that's great. If you don't get it, I can't change that. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not any of those things, each to their own. But if you're not all singing off the same song sheet, so if all your team aren't all focused and dialed in, then you're going to have people who wander along the way who get left behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you made a pretty good decision then, given the sort of changing values and visions at that point in time to sell the business. How interesting was that process? And I say that because I've been through it a couple of times.
Yeah.
In sort of maintaining the cohesion of that relationship with Andrew and the rest of the team as you sort of handed it to someone else. How did that go?
Look, I think we both agreed that we were going to sell the business. With the business, we were selling it when it was still hot, if you like, and we hadn't sold it on the downhill slide. Yeah. We'd worked towards selling it, so we'd set ourselves up probably 3 years before or 4 years before to say we're going to exit our business, and we then set ourselves up to the timing was really right for us to do that, but we'd planned the timing. Yeah. And so we kind of got our heads around it. We also knew that it was time for him and I to go our own ways.
Yeah.
We were mates, we were friends at the beginning when we started the business, and then we became business partners. And then we've ended now. I would help him if he needed help now. I could ring him and we'd have a civilized conversation, but we are just completely opposites. And he's off doing his thing and I'm opposite doing my thing. I'm off doing my thing. And I don't think I've ever been as happy as I am now, even when the boat business was pumping on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's enjoying the same level of success since he's left our partnership.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, there's probably a yin and yang, and that's probably the reason why it worked so well for so long.
Absolutely. But it worked for 15 years, and, during that time I like to say that I lasted longer than his wife did. So he ended up leaving her at about year 10, and I there's a loyal partner I stayed on. But, each of us are different. I'm not judging him. He's not judging me.
No.
It was great while it lasted, and it was a fantastic life experience that we will never forget.
And the next step was into the business that you're now in accountability, mate, or what was the transition there? Yeah,
no, it was. So we during the last few years while I was running our boat sales business, I got a contract to go and manage a marina for a group of developers. They were building a new marina, and I got involved in that project while I was running our boat sales business. And the profit share we got from running that contract, which I was doing all the work for, my business partner and I would split, because that's how we ran our business. It was always, we'd share everything together, including the profits of my book that I wrote and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I was running this marina, so effectively after the day that we settled, which was the 30th of June, 2017, the next day, the 1st of July, I turned up at Wyndham Harbour as a full-time employee of that marina, which I, instead of doing doing a couple of different jobs at once for them and for myself, I then focused on that as a full-time arrangement. So I kind of had business continuity moving forward. Yeah. And I did that for a couple of years, and that was quite successful. And then I decided, what I'm going to do now is to really look at, I've got this skill set that everybody tells me that they'd like to share with me, that they'd like to understand how I was able to do the things that I've achieved in my business career and in my boat sales, writing the books and, getting the media stuff that I was doing and becoming a speaker about, how to create a brand and leverage that brand for your business.
Yeah.
I ended up, being suggested by some friends. I was sort of a bit lost as to what I wanted to do. I'm a middle-aged guy, kind of looking for a job, maybe as a general manager or as a CEO of a business. And, I didn't have the formal university degree or the MBA or any of that crap that people want you to have. And I was really struggling with that. And it was actually really quite a difficult time because no one saw the value that I would bring. And a really close friend, Andrew Griffiths, as we both know, Bushy, said to me, go and set up yourself as an accountability coach and be the business coach with the difference. Really show people how to implement and execute, not just talk strategy. And I went, maybe I can do that. We'll see. Next day, I got it. It worked for me. Created a business called Tick Those Boxes, which seems to be a pretty good name to suit what it is I'm doing. And off I went, and that's just over a year and a half ago now, and it's going gangbusters.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. It's, you're made for that exercise. But before I sort of perhaps elaborate on some of the opportunities that are particularly relevant to these times around exactly that, the importance of accountability, I'd love to just sort of explore a little bit with you the fact that it's fairly clear to me from that very interesting history from self-employment to employment and backwards and forwards through some pretty challenging times. It seems pretty clear to me that you're actually one of the rare people that's quite comfortable with uncertainty. And, we are currently in extremely uncertain and uncharted territory as far as what's happening in the world generally. Can you share with us where your, I'll say comfort, it mightn't be the right word, but comfort with uncertainty is and your approach to uncertainty that's enabled you to sail through those quite dramatic changes in direction and whatnot right throughout your career, mate?
Yeah. It's interesting. I had a client session today, and I kind of use this analogy that all the working world, the business world, had a business plan that had been approved by the board of management, and we'd all been, chomping through it, hitting our milestones, hitting our quarterly numbers, their profitability is good. Everybody in the board that we all reported to as workers were given the thumbs up. And somebody just stopped, did the timeout symbol that you see on a basketball court. Yep. Back on the Grand Prix day, whatever the day that was, that kind of here in Melbourne anyway, in Victoria, that things was when the Grand Prix got cancelled because of the coronavirus. That was the start of a whole lot of a domino effect, I reckon, and everything escalated dramatically since then. But on that day, someone got my business plan, got your business plan, got everybody listening to your podcast business plan, everybody in the world, and they ripped it up in front of us. And they said, you can't do business that way anymore. Go find another way to do business. Yeah. And if we can use that analogy, because I reckon what I feel like now is that it's like we've been given a hand of cards and we just got to make the best with the tools that we're given. Whatever the regulations are, whatever the new rules are, I've got to go and make something of that. I got retrenched from Apple. All I had left was my skill set. What was I going to do? And I had a passion for boats. How can I bring those two areas together? Listen to my wife is the first thing we should all be doing. But it's to be able to then try and make something out of the pieces that are remaining. When I lost our business all those years ago, lost our house, I had no job the next day and a shitload of debt. What was I going to do to make something of with the pieces and the hand that I'd been dealt? And I think that's what that's always held me in good position in times like this. And this is unprecedented stuff. It's very different to the recession we had back years ago when interest rates were 22%. But the message is still the same. What is the new hand that we've got? How best can we go to that marketplace? Yeah. And for me, it's about the voice of it's the carved voice. It's about saying you're not alone in this. And you know what? For the first time in our working life, I reckon most of us have now got a strict set of rules. These are the social distancing rules and isolation, etc., that we must apply to. Most of us have never had those sort of rules. It was willy-nilly. We made our own decisions. Now we've got these rules that have been given to us. And there's lots of things that you can't do. I can give you the list of those things, but we need to just focus on what's left, and those are the things we can do.
Yeah, it's brilliant advice there, mate, around that, because there's certainly, I guess my own view is the worst thing that people can do is do nothing, because treading water is actually going backwards.
But I get the emotion though. People sometimes when they're overwhelmed and they're anxious, which is the word I've heard quite a lot over the last week or so from my clients, is feeling really anxious. They're certainly out of control and they're overwhelmed now. They just don't know where to start. the importance of being able to kind of calmly take a look at what you've got ahead of yourself and work out what you can control is really critical. And people are hurting, and my heart bleeds for them. It goes out to them because I've been there, done that. I've bawled my eyes out many nights when things have all gone pear-shaped. And I just need to release all that, built up anger and frustration and upset. And people are feeling scared. I get it.
So over pushing through and going through that fear, mate, what else do you suggest that they do to sort of be able to manage through the challenges?
Look, there's the little things that they need to work out. They just need to be nice to other people. We're all a bit of empathy. We're all going through. We're all in this shit together. So how can I help you? It's not about what you can sell to your clients right now. It's how you can help them get through this stuff. And you can focus on other people. The karma train will come around and call at your station, and you will be rewarded for it. So a bit of kindness helps. We need to accept the fact that this is the situation. Yes, we can be shitty. Yes, we can be pissed off with it, but we just need to accept it. And that, you've just got to appreciate the things that you do have. We've all got kids. We've all got our hopefully we've still got our health, and we're staying, virus free and that sort of stuff. We've just got to look at finding the stuff that gives us a bit of pleasure, puts a smile on our face, have a laugh with your mates, get on bloody Zoom and try and teach your elderly parents. Taught my old man how to get on Skype yesterday. Oh my golly, what an exercise that was. 90-year-old guy to get on Skype so I could at least have conversation with him, and now he's got it nailed. So there's a victory there, but we just got to look at the little things that we can do, get a bit of perspective into it. We're in our houses. We've still got great internet. We can watch Netflix as much as we like. We can probably get through those projects that we've been talking about doing because we've now got a bit more time on our hands. So now's the time to do that stuff that we were too busy to do before. Yeah. But now's the time to really refocus on what your business might look like moving forward, because your old business plan that I talked about before has been ripped up and has been thrown out.
Yeah, spot on. And let's face it, the greatest creativity and the greatest opportunities come out of challenging times like this. It's easy for you and I to probably say, mate, but I know, having had some knocks around the head myself over the years, that when I reflect back on them, they were the times when I really lifted my game and learnt the most. So while it feels really tough right now, and if you're burying yourself in the misery that the media likes to drown you in, it feels like the world's coming into an end. In my own view, I think this is going to be, yes, dramatic, but fairly short term. I don't believe that it's going to be a long, elongated, painful exercise. It may be months, but I don't believe it's going to be years. So
and look, the thing in this process though is to communicate with people, because you and I have got a little bit of grey-haired wisdom. I think you've got a bit more greys than I have, just quietly. But that grey-haired wisdom, there's a lot of people who haven't gone through this and who are looking to us. We've got a bit of experience. We've got that wisdom to be able to help be the voice of calm for them, and communication and sharing with your co-workers, your staff, your team, the things that you need to do, the decisions you need to make. So, this is not about the individual. This is about doing what you need to do right now and doing what's important right now. There's going to be, you're not going to be able to please everybody, because the old ways we used to do business and the old business plan's been ripped up. What's important right now is what you need to focus on, and you need to just be honest and calm with your communications. No one wants to listen to someone ranting, raving, and panicking. Yeah,
exactly right. And it becomes self-fulfilling. This is the challenge. The more you dip your head in the negativity and the more you voice it, the more it happens. So to some degree, I believe that what's going to fold out in coming months will be of our own making. If we all get together, and let's face it, Australia's in very good shape. The government's got very deep pockets. They're working with the banks to support every single one of us
And the banks are using this as a wonderful opportunity to perhaps build some credibility because they got whacked around with the Royal Commission.
Yeah.
And so, everybody's listening to everybody right now, which is a wonderful place to be.
Exactly. I think that probably the first time in a long time, we've got total focus and total cooperation amongst all levels of government, all levels of business. It's actually going to bring us, while we're sitting in our homes, it's actually going to bring us a lot closer together overall, and that can only be good for the
100%. And countries aren't fighting with each other. It's all about we're all in this together. And we're an island. We are going to be much better off than everybody else that's connected. Throughout Europe. We're pretty cool down here. We got that good old Aussie grit.
Absolutely, mate. No, mate, a great note to cap that discussion on. Mate, I'm going to jump into what I like to refer to as the ambush or the bushfire lightning round, where I hit you with 5 quick questions that the listeners always want your words of wisdom on. So kick that off, mate. What's your favourite quote and why?
Oh, wow. You can't buy happiness, but getting stuff done is pretty much the same thing.
Love it.
Why? Because I created it and I use it in all of my marketing. I think it sums up how that feeling of satisfaction when you get stuff done. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, there's no better feeling, mate, than getting stuff done. No question about that. Mate, flowing on from that, the top book that you'd recommend people read and why?
Yeah, look, our mutual friend Andrew Griffiths gave me this book at Christmas for a Christmas present called Get Shit Done. I mean, that seems pretty explanatory. The Ultimate Guide to Productivity, Procrastination and Profitability. It's a really easy read. It's got some really nice points in there and stuff that you can implement fairly well straight away. I'd recommend it. It's served me well.
Yeah, no, I love it, mate.
I'm going to write one myself.
Yes, well, mate, what is that? What's the one coming up, mate, given the accountability space? You got a name for it?
Yeah, no, I haven't kind of worked out. It's certainly along the theme of being able to get stuff done and stop being a gunner, and sort of converting those people who say they're going to do it and wish they did do it and had the hindsight, I wish I could have, to actually let's just do it, go through the process of how you might do that, because that is so different to so many people.
Yeah, no, spot on, mate. Can't wait to see that one, mate. Mate, changing tax a little bit, because this is a subject that a lot of Aussies feel, and while we're actually going to get a little bit of tax relief in the short to medium term, given what's happening, what's the top legal thing that you've done to minimise the tax you pay?
Oh, wow. Go find a really good accountant that is going to come up with the best strategy for me that's legal.
Yeah.
I'm happy to admit I'll pay, like Kerry Packer once said, I want to minimise the taxes I pay. I want to do it legally because I want to sleep well at night.
Yeah. That's the best advice, mate. A good accountant, absolutely worth their weight in gold. Mate, sort of switching back to the sort of investment subject for a moment, what's both the worst and the best piece of investment advice that you've ever received?
Oh, you're going to make me relive the moment where I sit back and calculate what my Apple shares would have been worth. So, Bushy, when I started at Apple, I started with a guy. We did our inductions together on the same day, a guy by the name of Des, who's still my mate today, lives in Queensland. When I left Apple, I was forced in a situation where I had to sell my Apple shares, and I took the money out of those Apple shares and I managed to renovate part of our house with it, which was kind of lovely at the time. Yeah. My mate Des, who I catch up with every Christmas, we still have a yap and a yarn. He's retired on $8 million US. Oh. So, according to my therapist, it's okay now and I should breathe when I talk about the story. But, mate, I reckon that's probably the look back at it, laugh and just get it all in the context and what it could have been. $8 million US. Just imagine that right now.
Oh.
Geez, there'd be a few people you'd tell to get stuffed in there.
Isn't there what, mate? Well, it's interesting, and looking at that exercise, in our business, because we help a lot of people in the property and finance arena, and a lot of people are ringing us saying, "Oh, should I be selling?" Absolute worst thing that people can do now is exactly that, because we're sailing into an era once the C word exercises has exited our existence that holding on to an investment long term is going to produce some really good fruit. So the one thing I do suggest people do is don't make rash decisions. Don't offload things unless you absolutely have to, because the nest egg opportunity that we're sitting in front of, given historically low rates, is very well poised. And that's good. Mate, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think that probably then segues into what my best piece of advice is, and that would have been to buy property.
Yeah.
It's always worked well, and for us, it's been a big part of turning our life around. Yeah,
good to hear that, mate. I'll get you back on another time to dig into that in a bit more detail, actually. Given that a lot of the listeners like myself, have a big interest in it. But mate, talking about personal habits, because you've obviously got some very good ones given the discipline that you bring to everything that you do. What's a personal habit that you believe has contributed most to your success over the years?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one to say what the one thing is. I'll give you the two of them. One is that I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm making a commitment and I'm going to hold myself to it, because I'm looking at you in the eye and I'm telling you I'm going to do it by this date, and that's what I would expect people to do for me. So that's exactly what I'm going to do back in return. But the second thing that I'm a real believer in, particularly in terms of investment success, is to know what my strengths are. I'm not a financial person. I'm not I don't know the share market. I don't understand all that stuff. So I'm going to surround myself with experts who are, and I'm going to listen to their advice, and I'm going to act it out and implement it. But I know what my strengths are, and I'm going to stick to where my strengths are and don't try and be something I'm not. Yeah,
that's really good advice, mate. There's way too many people who try to be all things to everyone and end up being very little to not much.
Yeah.
So, well said, mate. Sort of closing question there, mate, and this is one that I've sort of introduced recently. If I gave you the microphone and that microphone hooked into every single one of the 7.7 billion people currently in the world, and I gave you 1 minute to talk to them, what would you say?
1 minute. It would be basic. It would be that what we're experiencing right now is one story in our life. It is not our life. Our life is made up of a whole lot of components, and we're going to turn the page on this, and just as the sun's going to rise tomorrow, the tide's going to go in and out. This will pass, and we just need to know with what it is we're going to do with the tools that we're given, and go to market with that and do what's important right now.
Yeah, brilliantly said, mate. A very opportune and timely message for those that are listening in and wondering what to do with the future. Mate, been awesome having you on, mate. Always love catching up. You always put a smile on my face straight away, buddy. And I know you've done the same for those that are listening in today. But, mate, what's next new and exciting for you and what you're doing?
Yeah, look, thanks, Bushy. I've created my one-on-one programs seem to be working really well for people at the moment. And what the thing that really resonates well with most of the clients with all the clients that I have and with my new prospects that I'm talking with is the fact that I will call them every week. We will set up a set time in our diaries, and I'm going to ring them up every week and follow their progress and make sure they do the things they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do them. And if they can implement that for their business and pass that down to their team, then they're actually going to set up accountability through their organisation. So the thing is, most people get mixed up between responsibility and accountability. We are responsible for things. We are accountable to people. And if you can get the accountability part right, I mean, there was a study done in the US that talked about the probability of achieving your goals if you actually understand what they are. And what was really interesting is that 10% probability you have if you actually want to go and if you have an idea or a goal. You get a 25% probability of completing that if you consciously decide that you will do it. That goes to 40% if you can say, I'm going to do that particular thing by such and such a date, so you know when. You increase that to 50% if you plan how you're going to do it. And it goes to 65% if I make a commitment to somebody. Bushy, I'm going to do this task by this day, and this is how I'm going to do it. but what I think is game-changing for all business people of all levels is that you can get 95% probability if you have a specific accountability appointment with someone that you've committed to. So if I say to you, Bushy, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, we're both going to go to the gym. You're going to meet me you're a professional. You're going to meet me out the front at 7 o'clock in the morning, probably 5 to 7 because you're never late for anything. And we're going to go and do it and support each other.
Yeah.
But if you didn't make that commitment, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning thinking, I've got a headache. I had a big night the night before, all these reasons why I can't. And I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it today and I'll cancel it. So the real issue is if you can find someone to hold you to account, you have a 95% chance of achieving those goals, promises and tasks you've set out to achieve. That to me is game changing in business. Just find someone to hold you to account and you can do it.
It's not rocket science, but it amazes me how few people take advantage of that, mate. And I always ascribe to the same beliefs as you, so I've always got someone that I'm telling you. Even right now, on a mission to carve some comfort kegs off for the hockey season that's now been suspended for a little while, and I needed to drop 10. And my way of making myself accountable was to say on Facebook to all and sundry, this is what I'm going to do, and I've been weighing in every week. I've dropped 7. I've still got 3 to go in about 2.5 weeks, but I wouldn't be there if I hadn't put myself on the line and told others that this is what I'm going to achieve by when. And every time I do that, it works. How
much difference did it make by just telling everybody on Facebook? Because all your mates are all going to chip in with, you reckon you only need to lose 10, you probably need to lose 14. And you'll get all that, but you'll get everybody from that point onwards who says, how you going, Bushy? What are you up to, mate? What's it doing? How are you looking? How are you feeling? Everybody is interested in your success. And you're not going to let your mates down. You're going to keep your head up, held up high, and you'll deliver on the promises you make because that's how you roll.
100%, mate. And
you're dead certain to lose the 10.
Yeah, well, it's spot on, and I know now that because I'm one of those people that's either 150% or I'm nothing. So if I haven't made myself accountable to someone over something, I know there's a fair chance it's not going to happen. So, mate, brilliant advice around that. And for those listeners who the light bulb's gone on in relation to just how important accountability is going to be, not only to get us through what we're going through now, but to really achieve all of their longer-term lifestyle goals. If they want to reach out to you to get your support, mate, how do they do that and where do they contact you?
Yeah, thanks, Bushy. I appreciate the plug. Look, they can just head to my website, tickthoseboxes.com.au, or they can, in the show notes, you'll have my email address, df@tickthoseboxes.com.au. Send me an email. Love to have a chat with you. No obligation, just because you're one of Bushy's listeners. Happy to have a yarn. We can do what's called an unboxing session, which, I'm happy to spend an hour or so with you. We'll look at your priorities. We'll look at your to-do list, and we'll dig in deep to how you think you're going to implement that. We'll create a plan and set some timelines so you've got really something solid from that. We can work together one-on-one if you'd like to do that, or you can get a group, between 3 and 7 people together. You can have your own accountability group. I'll facilitate it. We can do it over Zoom if you're not local, or if we're still social distancing, we can do it online. Otherwise, when all this stuff is over and done with, we can sit face to face, and I will keep your whole group accountable. We can do it at a regular frequency. You'll get some session notes so you know exactly what you need to follow up on, and you can share that learning amongst your colleagues or your cohort really quite easy.
Love it, mate. Love it. There's some great options on how to do it. I really do recommend the listeners, if you don't have an accountability partner, there's no better bloke than the guy that you've been listening to today to help you on that journey, because not only will you achieve what you achieve, you'll have a lot of fun and a lot of laughs as a result of it. Mate, really appreciate you taking your time out of your very busy schedule to share with us, mate. Can't wait to catch up with you again myself personally, and thanks for coming on Get Invested, buddy.
Mate, thanks, Bushy, and everybody out there, stay safe and look after each other and be kind.
Well said. Thanks, buddy.
Well, freedom fighters, how good was that? To get a summary of all this investment gold in the show notes, just email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's HELLO@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.khgroup.com.au. www.bushymartin.com.au/get invested. I look forward to joining you next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. So thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die tomorrow.